Hello and welcome. You're watching Informed Investor, brought to you in association with the National Stock Exchange. I'm Sumaira Abdi. At Informed Investor, travelling never stops. This week we find ourselves in Pune at the campus of Bajaj Auto. Also at Informed Investor, what never stops is our attempt to help retail investors find the best investment strategies that suit their needs. So let's find out what employees of Bajaj Auto want to know. Finally, here we are at Bajaj Auto in Pune, and we have a whole host of employees who've gathered here, and they have a lot of questions that they want to ask. We're also very honored because we have Mr. Krishna Kumar Karwa and we have Mr. Harshvardhan Rungta here who are ready to start answering their questions. But before we open the floor to the audience, I have a few questions also that I'd like to ask. But Harshvardhan, I want to ask you that a lot of people here and a lot of the people we interact with, one of the big things on their mind is how do they plan for retirement. So what exactly is retirement planning? Because a lot of people think that it's perhaps some sort of pension schemes, insurance that they should be investing in. How do we break that jinx and, rejig the entire plan for retirement?
The first and foremost is that you need regular income coming in post your productive years of working. Okay, so once you stop generating income, there has to be some source of income coming in, which is generally coined as pension. And hence, pension plans from insurance companies is one natural choice which a person has. But if you look at retirement planning, okay, we break this up into two parts. One is the period in which you are going to be earning, which is, say, if a person is, say, 30 years of age and his retirement age is 60. So he has 30 years of working years, and then he has post-retirement years, which if you take an average mortality of about, say, 76 years of age, or we take lifespan up to 80. So he's going to live for about 16 to 20 years post-retirement, for which he needs regular income coming in. So we break this up into two parts. The first part is when you're earning. That is the period in which you need to save money and invest it in some form which will generate a corpus at the age of retirement, which you can deploy and park it in a fixed deposit or anywhere else, which will generate income for you. Now, you don't need to necessarily go through a pension plan offered by an insurance company only. You can accumulate corpus by investing either into even into equities. You can buy shares, you can buy mutual funds which have got equity as a base, because you have long term, you have a lot of time in your hand, and equities over a longer period of time give you the best returns. Then comes a time when you are at the doorstep of retirement. That is the time you need to go safe with your investments. So you do an asset allocation at that point in time, decide where do I need to park my money, and then start receiving income on that money. So you could actually go and even buy an immediate annuity plan from an insurance company at that point in time. You do not need to commit yourself for an insurance plan from today itself. True. So how do you accumulate money is the point in question. There is where asset allocation needs to come in place. You, considering how much time you have in hand, you buy either into equities or you buy into fixed return instruments. And then how do you distribute income is another step altogether. So the myth that you need to go through only an insurance policy which is termed and coined pension plan, that doesn't really hold good.
Yeah, and retirement planning, like any other sort of planning, is no alien. You can invest in any asset class, but remember to change your allocations as you grow older. But let's get in some questions now. We have a first question. Go ahead, sir. What's your question?
I'm married and having two kids. My elder daughter is 6th standard and younger is nursery. And next 6 to 7 years, I don't foresee any heavy liability. I'm staying in a rented house, and I have a purchase house in another town for which EMI is going on, and that should continue for next 5-6 years. So whatever the disposable or the money available with me, what should be my strategy for next 5 to 6 years duration or horizon?
If I'm looking at personal finance, okay, we have 2 or 3 parameters on which we request all our investors to put some mind upon. One is risk of living too short. What is risk of living too short? You have 2 dependents on you in the form of your children, and you're married, you have children. Now, if in case there was some eventuality which was to happen to you, okay, untimely death, I mean, I'm coming straight to the point. How does your family take care of themselves? So that is the risk of living too short, which is taken care of in the form of buying an adequate life insurance coverage. That is one thing you need to address. How much, all that will be when you go more into the details. How much coverage do you need? The second part is risk of living dead. Now suppose that eventuality was to happen, you meet with an accident, but you're rendered completely disabled. It has not led to death. Okay, so it has led to a situation which is rendered you completely disabled. In that case also there is going to be a loss of income, right? How do you take care of yourself and your family during that period? So there is that event which you need to plan for. The third is risk of living too long, which we've just spoken about, is retirement. That's a risk of living way beyond your earning years. So, and the fourth one is the contingency and other moral obligations. It is your duty bound as a parent to ensure that there is good education given to your children. So you need to make some provisions. You need to first identify what do you want to save for. So which is for their education, marriage. Second, you need to know how much time do I have from here on to save for that requirement. Third is how much do I need to save. What is financial planning is when it's more specific to individual. What may suit you may not suit the person next to you. Okay, so these are the broader parameters on which you need to see and evaluate your own finances. And then specific to your requirements, you need to put numbers and products to it. So that's how you should start moving from here on.
All right, so on that note, we need to take a very quick break. We'll be back in just a bit. Do keep watching Informed Investor. Welcome back. You're watching Informed Investor. We're at the Bajaj Auto campus in Pune. With us, Mr. Krishna Kumar Karwa and Harshvardhan Rungta, and a whole host of employees of Bajaj Auto who've gathered here. So let's get cracking. We have our first question, but that's already ready. Go ahead, sir.
I have a financial advisor who doesn't charge me anything because he is my neighbor. So he advised me to invest into a few mutual funds like ICICI Prudential Focused Blue Chip, DSP BlackRock Equity. So in Blue Chip, I am investing 5,000 rupees per month. In DSP BlackRock Equity, 3,000 per month. Franklin India Prima Plus, around 4,000 per month. And HDFC Midcap Opportunities, around 3,000. It's overall around 15,000 per month since last 3 years. So any changes required into this portfolio and how are they performing? Do I need to get out of something or put in something new? I would like.
The first question, the schemes that you have selected, those schemes are good in their own category. Now you need to first, decide as to you've chosen a couple of, your funds are diversified. You have some money going into the large cap. You have a diversified equity. You have two mid cap funds. Now, in mutual funds also, there are two kinds of funds broadly. Okay, one is an actively managed fund. All your investments that you're doing currently are going into actively managed funds. What are actively managed funds? The fund manager actually chooses the companies that he needs to invest into, and it's all based on the objectives of the fund. Now there's another form of investing, specifically goes for a person who's probably new into equity investments also. Now these are passively managed funds. These are called indexed funds. Okay, if you're investing into an index fund, that will buy stocks which are exactly as per what is there as a part of the Sensex or the Nifty. So if there are 30 stocks comprising in the Sensex in a particular weightage, exactly that is what will be replicated in the mutual fund scheme itself. And if there are 50 stocks in the Nifty, so 50 stocks in that same proportion will be reflecting in the scheme itself. So there is one portion of your investments you should always have into a passively managed fund, because you don't have to track the performance. If you're putting into a Sensex, you know that the Sensex over a period since inception has given about 17% returns. And there is also a study which says that less than 50% of fund managers can actually beat the Sensex or the benchmark index over a 5-year and above period. So whether your fund manager is going to be able to do that or no, that you will realize only 5 years from now. And what if he has not been able to? So you don't want to be on the wrong side of the fence. So very strongly I am recommending that add one scheme which invests into an index fund, which could, and the total weightage of the investments that you're making, around 20% of that can be allocated to that. And as India as a market develops and we become more mature markets, you can increase the allocation into the index fund. You want a 14 to 15% return, which the index fund is giving you. So that will help you build your corpus.
All right, one more question.
Yeah, recently I read that new investor being encouraged by government not to go for gold and go for equity. I just wanted to know more elaborated information on that.
Yeah, this is the Rajiv Gandhi scheme for promoting investments, and it has recently been notified. So I think there will be more details coming about in the various forms in which you can invest. So there will be, I believe, there will be some mutual fund schemes which will be notified as being eligible for investment for under this scheme. Then there is also going to be some public sector divestments which will be routed through ETF route. But yes, it's a very good step to encourage first-time investors below, I think, 10 lakhs rupees of gross income to invest in equities.
You want to add something more to it?
Basically, this scheme is for people who have never invested into equities at all in their entire life. So the scheme is designed in such a form which says that you can, if your income, gross income is less than 10 lakh of rupees, and you can invest 50,000 rupees, which will be allowed as which will be given to you as a tax benefit. 50% of that will be eligible for tax benefits. So if you're falling into a 30% tax bracket, on 25,000 rupees, you will save 30% tax. Now, where does that money? You can't just go and buy any stock of your choice. Okay, so there is going to be probably an PSU ETF, which is going to be again being launched through the disinvestment proposal that the government is considering. There are going to be mutual funds which are going to be coming out specifically offering this scheme. You need to be invested for 3 years into equities. Whenever you buy, you need to be invested for 3 years. Within 1 year, you cannot even sell what you've bought. So whatever you have invested into for 1 year, you cannot move out of that scheme. You cannot sell that share also. After the first 1 year gets over, then second and third year you can sell, but buy again into another stock or a mutual fund again. Okay, and this benefit is going to be available only once in a lifetime, because if you become an equity investor in year 1, year 2 you're already an existing equity investor. So this benefit is available only once in a lifetime of an investor also.
You have a question on equity?
Even within an equity allocation, should there be any strategy on stocks that are paying dividend consistently or stocks that are growing well over a period of time?
Dividend paying companies are an important criteria when you're creating a portfolio, because sometimes it may happen that the stock prices may come off from at what levels you have bought. But if a company is consistently paying dividend, then at least there is some income which is coming in, and over a period of time such companies will make a comeback. So yes, you should be doing the right balance between dividend paying companies, and sometimes when you are looking for growth, initially the companies may not be paying dividend because they plow back all their income for their growth purposes. So it's also important to have our allocations to high growth companies also. But yes, if you can do the right balancing between dividend paying companies and growth companies over a period of time, and the portfolio will deliver good returns to you.
All right, so on that note, we need to take a very quick break. We'll be back in just a bit. Do keep watching Informed Investor. Welcome back. You're watching Informed Investor. This week, we're in Pune at the campus of Bajaj Auto. With us, Mr. Krishna Kumar Karwa and Harshvardhan Roongta, answering a lot of questions. So let's get to it right away. We have our first question that's ready. Go ahead, sir. What's your question?
I want to know the strategy to investment in equity sector-wise, and how to spot the growing sector.
Economies go through cycles, and at various points of time there will be sectors which will be in flavor and which will not be in flavor. But having said that, there are some sectors which inherently throw up a lot of cash flows for the companies which are in those sectors. So if you look at FMCG companies, now that's a sector which is a kind of perennial at one level, and most of the companies, because of the power of their brand, etc., throw a huge amount of cash flows and pay huge dividends. So from a longer term perspective, if you are invested in a sector like FMCG sector, you will possibly see hardly any dilutions and probably more of bonuses and dividends, etc. Similarly, you could see many of the pharmaceutical companies. Again, that is a sector which is more consistent in terms of growth. Currently, the need of the hour for a country like India is infrastructure. So from a top-down basis, the sector looks very, very interesting. But the challenge in this sector is that companies in this sector continuously require huge amounts of debt and equity infusions. So from a sector perspective, the sector looks very exciting. But from an equity investor perspective, will it continue to give you good returns over a longer period of time? The answer could be yes, the answer could be no. So it's taking sectoral calls requires a lot of sophistication. So we always try to advise our investors is that instead of trying to figure out which sectors to be in at any point of time, it's better to be reasonably well diversified across sectors, so that over a period of time your portfolio gives you very good returns. Thank you.
All right, I hope that answers your question. We have time for one more question.
After going through all this discussion, one question comes to my mind: how to select a good advisor who will give me good returns?
There are two kinds of advisors in the market available today. One who represents the manufacturer. Okay, there is one who calls himself an advisor, and he's actually getting paid by the company in which you're going to be investing. Okay, so there is a term which is he's an agent broker of that company, and he is selling a product of that company to fit into your scheme of things. He's being remunerated by the manufacturer. Now there is another set of advisors who are independent, okay, who charge you a fee, okay, and recommend products to you. Now, having been into corporate world, you would certainly know who's going to work in your favor. Okay, so if there is somebody who's going to charge you a fee, he's going to talk about your interests. If a person is going to be paid through some other sources, he's going to be talking about their interest. So be open to the idea of paying for what you get. Okay, you want good advice, be open to paying for that advice, and person will surely think in your favor. So that's one criteria. You have to identify whether he is associated with some other company or he's going to be charging you for his remuneration.
All right, so I hope that answers your question, and I hope that you're now on your way to being informed investors. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for having us over. Thank you so much, Mr. Karwa, Harshvardhan. A pleasure having you on the show, and thanks for your interest in investor education. But here's where we need to wrap up then. We'll see you here next weekend, but do remember to keep sending us your questions and comments. And if you'd like to invite us to your corporate campus, you can also write into us. We'll see you here next weekend. Bye-bye.